Now is the time. Wrong way.
Oh, hey, Gatsby. What are you doing?
Casting a spell. I have summoned something.
Loyal.
Oh, crap.
What are you doing here?
What? I don't know. It's like I was summoned by some kind of a spell.
Back to the drawing board.
What's his problem?
I don't know.
Weird. Today I'd like to move away from Dungeons & Dragons Daily for a bit and do some more in-depth videos like the ones you've requested in the community section of the YouTube channel. I'm going to be using the 2018 Collector's Edition Player's Handbook. I know there's a new edition that's come out, but I like what's in this edition, and I actually love this cover as well. I'm going to start with races, then move into classes, and do a bit more detail on each of those. So join me on this journey into Dungeons & Dragons. No matter what race you choose, each race has racial traits, which are traits that are common to a majority of the people within that race. And this involves a number of different things. The first is their age, and that can range from different ages. Some of them are very old and ancient and can live for a long time. Others have short lifespans of about 80 years or even shorter. We shouldn't also forget about their ability score increases. Now, each race has a different ability score that they can increase because they are of that race. So look into that when deciding what race you want to be, depending on how you want to play the character, because those ability score increases can have a great advantage to you when creating your character. Most races have a tendency towards some form of alignment, and a majority of that race will be of that alignment. So check that out when you're deciding on your alignment as well, so that you blend in with the rest of your race in terms of what your alignment is. In terms of size, a majority of the races are medium size, about 6 to 8 feet in terms of their height. Although you do have some races that are small, but there are benefits to being small as well, so look into that. So don't just think of choosing a medium character because of all the benefits of that. The smaller races also have great benefits to them. Different races have different speeds as well, so look into that, because speed is really important as it determines how far you can travel in a turn. Language. By virtue of your race, you can speak, read, and write a certain language or certain languages. So make sure you understand that as well, because depending on where you're going and the kind of adventure you're having, you want to know what kind of languages you're going to encounter along the way. It's really important that you understand what you can understand and what you can't understand, what you can read and what you can't read, and what you can write and what you can't write. So language is really important when deciding your character, depending on what kind of adventure you're getting into. Don't forget about sub-races as well. Some races have sub-races that have other traits to them or different traits in that sub-race. So look into those sub-races as well. So let's launch ourselves into our first in-depth look at a race. Hey, what you doing?
I want to choose the race.
Okay, you're stealing my camera angle here. This is not good. Sorry. Just move to the side here. That way they can see me and they can see you. Okay. Okay.
Let's do dwarves.
Okay, we'll do dwarves.
Yeah. Okay.
Where does he go? Kingdoms rich in ancient grandeur, halls carved into the roots of mountains, forges burning deep within the mountains, the sound of pickaxes grinding away at the rock. Also, a burning hatred of goblins and orcs. That is what unites the race of dwarves. Dwarves are workers in stone and metal, but they're also awesome warriors and fighters. Although most of them are 5 feet or smaller, they are so compact and stout that they weigh as much as a human 2 feet taller than them. The advantage is also that they have great courage and endurance, much more so than some of the humans that they encounter. Dwarven skin ranges from deep brown to a lighter shade with a reddish tinge, but a majority of them are tanned or darker skinned. I guess their skin is kind of like the tones of the earth. Their hair is long, but they have simple style. And a lot of the time their hair is either black or brown or grey. The paler dwarves often have red hair. Male dwarves value their beard and they groom them very, very carefully. They take great pride in their appearance, particularly of their beards. Dwarves can often live to 400 years old, so they have a very long memory and can remember a world very different to the world they're living in now. They've probably experienced a great deal of things in their lives, more than most of the human characters do. This longer life gives them a bit more perspective and wisdom when it comes to the ways of the world, because they've experienced so much more and seen so much more than other creatures have. Dwarves do not abandon their traditions lightly. They've held them for centuries and they stick to them very closely, as well as sticking very closely to the places of their origin. They're very passionate about their traditions. Part of that tradition is their devotion to the gods who are just like them, who love the art of war, who are passionate about the forges, who are long enduring and have a great passion for the things that the dwarves do. So they have a great love for their gods. If you play a dwarf, remember that dwarves are true and loyal to their word and very determined, sometimes to the point of stubbornness. Dwarves have a very strong sense of justice and they remember when they've been wronged, and they remember for a very, very long time when they have been wronged. Dwarves love beauty and artistry, and they love creating jewelry and other such things, to the point sometimes where they're a little over-passionate about it. Whatever wealth they can't find by mining, they do by trading to gather as much of the beautiful wealth as possible. The one thing to note, and the weakness of dwarves, is they hate boats. So most of the trade in dwarven goods along sea routes and along rivers is done by halflings and other such creatures, rather than the dwarves themselves, because they can't stand boats. Now, dwarves do welcome visitors to their areas, but there are certain areas within their kingdom that only dwarves are allowed into. So if you aren't a dwarf and you encounter a dwarven mine or a dwarven settlement, always be careful of where you can and can't go. The chief unit in dwarven society is the clan, and a dwarf will be loyal to their clan to the death. Even when far away from their kingdom, they will value that clan, and they will still invoke the names of the gods for swearing or for curses. The worst nightmare for a dwarf is to be clanless. That is the ultimate fear of any dwarf. A dwarf who lives away from his own clan is usually an artisan, like a weaponsmith or a jeweler, or something along those lines in the towns you will encounter. So if you play a dwarf on an adventure, you'll probably be interested in creating things and gathering things to be created. And maybe that will be your side trade as an artisan for the group or for the community you live in. Dwarves are known for their courage and loyalty, so a lot of them who are out there are not only artisans, but they're also mercenaries and bodyguards. So maybe your character is a mercenary if you're going to create a dwarf, or a lot of the dwarves you will encounter will be mercenaries or artisans. There can be a number of different motivations for why a dwarf does what he does. It could be a loyalty to a certain individual. It could be seeking treasure. It could be that they are doing a mission for one of their gods. But they're always loyal to whatever that is and will stick to it stubbornly. So remember that if you create a dwarf, that there should be some form of goal, or it could be gathering more treasure, or it could be that their god has called them to do something. But there should be some kind of mission or reason that they're away from their clan. Clan and ancestry are very strong motivators for dwarves. The old dwarven saying is, the difference between an acquaintance and a friend is about 100 years. It's because dwarves are very slow to trust others. This makes it difficult for dwarves to trust races like humans, who can only live for between 80 to 100 years. But it does make it easier for other races, such as elves. Although they don't trust elves that much, when in battle and other such things, elves have been helpful for them in the past. In fact, some dwarves say, "'Tis good to have an elf at your back if you can't have a dwarf." But they're still slow to trust them, but not as slow as with humans, because elves, but they live for longer, so there's more time for them to gain that trust. They don't like halflings that much, not because of anything they've done, but more because, they haven't achieved much. In terms of their friendship with humans, they say, well, you take the time to get to know them, and then they're on the deathbed. So a lot of the time, it takes a lot for a human to gain the trust of a dwarf. A dwarf's name is granted by a clan elder, as is decreed by tradition. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it, and let's take a look at what are the benefits of being a dwarf. What does a dwarf give you that makes it a good character to play? Well, to start with, your ability score modifier. As I said, different races have different ability score modifiers. With dwarves, it increases your constitution. Your constitution score increases by 2. Now, in terms of age, dwarves age much like humans, but aren't considered adults until they're 50 years of age. And then they live to about 350 to 400 years of age. Most dwarves are lawful, and most dwarves are lawful good in their alignment. They're very loyal, they're very passionately loyal. So when it comes to creating a dwarf, most of the dwarves you will encounter will be lawful good. And if you create a dwarf, lawful good is probably the best alignment to go with to fit in with the rest of the dwarves. Your height is between 4 to 5 feet. Your size is medium, and you weigh about 150 pounds. Probably one of the disadvantages of being a dwarf is that your walking speed is 25 as opposed to like the average of 30. So that you need to take into account when you're thinking about this race. Yeah, your walking speed's just a little bit shorter, just about 5 foot shorter than the average walking speed. But the benefit of being a dwarf is that your speed is not slowed down by wearing heavy armor. Of course, being a dwarf, you have dark vision and you can see in dim light to 60 feet. You can't see colors in darkness. It's probably looking kind of grayish, but you have dark vision to 60 feet, which is a great thing. With all the dungeons you explore, dark vision is a good benefit to have. Because of your resilience as a dwarf, you have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you also have a resistance to poison. Because you're a dwarf, you have proficiency with a battle axe, a hand axe, a light hammer, and a war hammer. Smithy, brewer, mason. As a dwarf, you have your choice of one of those artisan skills to specialize in. When you do a history check on any kind of stonework, because you're a dwarf, you double your proficiency bonus when you do a history check on that to find out where it's from, what it's all about. Double it. In terms of languages, you read, speak, and write Common and Dwarvish. There are two sub-races of dwarf, the Hill Dwarf and the Mountain Dwarf. If you're a Hill Dwarf, your Wisdom ability score increases by 1. Another benefit is your hit points increase by 1, and they increase by 1 every time you level up as well. So that's your Hill Dwarves. Now the Mountain Dwarves. With Mountain Dwarves, your Strength score increases by 2, and you have a proficiency with light or medium armor. So there's my first in-depth look into one race. And I'm going to look at a different race each week. That is the race of dwarves. If you have any questions about it, or if you've had any experience playing dwarves, just put your comments below. I've already taken into account the requests that people have, but if you have other requests for races that you want me to explore, put them in the comments below and I'll do an in-depth video about them somewhere down the track. I've got quite a few requests already that I'm working on. So that's it for this week in terms of an in-depth look at the race of dwarves. Next time, we'll take a look at elves. Thanks for joining me. Catch you next time.